In a world of increasing mental health challenges, psychology and faith can both provide tools for healing and wellness. This is the idea behind Journey on My Mind. Each episode, our panel of pastors and therapists sit down together to share their experiences and insights on the modern world's mental health issues: depression, loneliness, aging, addiction, and so much more. Join us now as we explore what it means to thrive at the complex intersection of spirit and psychology.
Plugged into the Matrix, so
sweet.
Yeah.
All righty. We're having the podcast before the podcast.
Okay.
I know, but
I don't know what's true and what's not, though, with all of it. It's just what I've read.
well, I've read a lot actually, because I knew we were going to eventually do this, and so welcome to A Journey on My Mind. We are going to travel down a path today well into the future. Or is it really the present?
The future is now.
Is the future now? And we wanted to talk a little bit about AI.
For sure.
And how that interacts with faith, how it interacts with the church, but also I think people are seeking out AI help for psychology.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I've like this week, I've had more than one client say, well, I told ChatGPT this and they said such and such. I'm like, you're a secondary therapist, or am I the secondary therapist?
Yeah.
Well,
It's becoming more and more because I was talking to a friend of mine on, I don't know, someday this week. This week has turned into just a constant day.
It's a long week.
It started and then it hasn't ended.
Stopped.
Yeah, that's right. I sleep periodically, but I don't even know when I'm supposed to do that. But he said that he's found, like, where we've gone from having a conversation with Siri, or what's the Amazon one?
I don't know. Alexa,
yeah.
Turn off the lights.
Now this is like, those are like child's play. This is like gone to a level of, hey, I need to figure out how to book a flight to a place I'm not supposed to go. So can you help me out with that? And
there it is.
Bam, 10 seconds later, it's got a plan.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah. The difference just technically is that Siri and Alexa and things like that are, and Waze, they're AI. We've had them for years.
Right.
But the sea change was when we got into what's called generative AI, which creates things that didn't exist before. Creates either documents or responses or creative, you name it, in any, and that's what we're
images it can create.
So those things that are created that didn't previously exist. That's what we're dealing with.
Yes. And we were just talking before we got onto the podcast just how smart AI has gotten, where it has learned how to prevent itself from being shut off, which I think is like, okay, we're heading down this path of being batteries for the Matrix.
Hey, and sign me up.
Dave's in, man.
I'm in.
Dave's in.
I get to live in a pod.
Well, you're in a constant, like, pleasant dream state. You're being fed. You're in this little pod. You're just a battery. You're a battery source. This is good.
Yes.
You can do that.
Count me in.
Well, Angela, my wife.
But then the Terminator shows up.
She's so hooked on the. Have you ever seen that? Well, it's the little videos of, like, it'll be like adults, but they're baby versions of adults. And stuff.
A lot of those.
Or animals sing. Like, she just cracks up with that stuff.
I have
so
no
funny.
idea
Amazing.
what that is.
Yeah. Oh, well, I can show you.
That's all right. I don't need to know.
There are some new video platforms, including one called VEO, that they are cinematic quality. You can't really, to the naked eye, you can't really discern that this isn't a studio produced film clip.
Wow.
I mean, it
What's
was
it
getting
called?
closer.
VEO.
VEO.
Okay.
And there are others too, but that's the one that is head spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the whole thing actually is, it feels like it's exponentially jumped.
Yes, like that's
forward.
what I say, really fast.
in like about 6 months.
Right.
Am I wrong on that? Or
No.
It's okay.
This was predicted.
Oh yeah,
decades and decades ago.
Yeah, people
they
have
were
been
going to hit this point where the growth curve is just going to shoot up rapidly.
Yeah, and we've hit that.
We were thinking this was all going to hit maybe 20 years later than it is hitting.
Yeah,
and here we are.
Yeah.
And so we are on the rocket ship right now.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that's a legitimate thing to talk about. How do we navigate this, not just from a human perspective, but from a faith perspective? But also, I'm curious, I don't use it. I have done nothing, literally nothing with it.
Yeah.
But I've done a lot of reading about it. And I've talked to people who have done a lot with it. And my son does a lot with it.
Yeah.
And so I find it fascinating, actually.
I am immersed in it.
Okay.
I have multiple platforms, multiple paid platforms.
Yeah.
So what I'll say is I've used this analogy before, but if someone said, is AI good or bad? I would say, is fire good or bad?
Right. Yeah.
If fire's in your fire pit and you're having a nice evening, it's pretty
really
nice.
Yeah.
If fire's on your roof,
Bad deal.
probably a bad
deal.
night.
Yeah, bad.
So it's a powerful thing, and it cuts both ways.
Yeah.
And I will say, historically in the church has actually been pretty good about figuring out how to use.
That's my dog.
Yeah. We'll just have punctuations of little barks every once in a while, just keep you on your toes. But the church has been good about taking new technologies and using them well. Like, so you go back, the printing press or the radio or internet or whatever it might
be.
Electricity. The church has actually been historically not too
far
bad
behind. Right.
about okay, how do we co-opt this? How do we use it well? And then there's the other side of, where there's been, in some cases, a lack of thoughtfulness, a lack of consideration, not just in the church, but in our larger culture. And I'll give you a really good recent example is when
I'm liking this so far.
When these new, when social media was pretty new. So remember back in the day, it was MySpace, and then it was Facebook, and then
all the others.
The early kind of vibe on that was, isn't this amazing? It's going to connect people. It's going to be more democratic. It's going to make inroads with cultures that are more authoritarian. And
it had potential, man.
And some of that potential was realized, and some of it is true.
Yeah.
But we never thought well about, what? This could be incredibly destructive. And it has been. It's one of the most destructive forces in our culture right now.
I agree.
In terms of people's psychological well-being, cultural well-being. It is a major player in our divided culture right now.
Yeah.
We should probably do a podcast on that at some point.
So that's why I feel like AI is it is a failure of imagination, and I'm owning that for myself. Like, I don't know what this could even be about. I know it can generate film clips, it can make songs, it can produce books, it can do all kinds of things, and we're getting kind of caught in that sort of more concrete level of that good or bad, and does that ruin creative ventures, and does all that, and that's important. But I think there's this other level that we don't even know what this means.
Like, are we asking the wrong question?
Are we asking the wrong question? What does this do to us as a people, as a culture?
What is this going to do just for cognitive thinking?
Right.
Do I have to think anymore? I mean, there's a degree of where Google has done some damage to that.
Absolutely.
And having vast amount of information at your fingertips is one thing, but then to ask or have the ability to create something out of that vast information without my participation in it,
or minimal participation.
Well, here's a great example that Angie and I laugh about a lot, and maybe it's not funny. I don't know, but I used to.
My guess is it is.
Well, maybe. But from touring, like there was no GPS, we had atlases and maps, and we could get wherever we needed to get. We got there.
Yep.
But when GPS came along, I let that become my road brain. So I joke about like I put it in the GPS just to get back and forth to work anymore.
Well, you know what's funny? I was driving my grandkids. We were going to go to Chipotle last night for dinner. We were in the car, and I know how to get there, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, "How do you know?" And my granddaughter, who's 7, goes,
"How do you know?"
To Lori, "How do you know where to go?"
Yeah.
What do you mean? How do I know where to go? You don't have the map on.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just driving to Chipotle. And she's like, yeah, but how do you know how to get there?
Yeah.
My mind is blown.
Well, I've become so dependent. That's a place that I see where I've just let that take over my brain.
Yeah.
And my kids, like, even looking at an atlas or a map, it's like, it's so fun. I mean, they're 20, but they've rarely seen something
Lori,
like
who's
that.
Gigi to them, turns around and goes, it's okay. He knows how to get there.
Yeah.
Really? All right.
Yeah, anyway.
No, that's true. When I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, I knew how every road connected. When I moved here, I promise you, I've been here a decade.
You can't get.
I don't know.
A to
like
B.
people are like 440 and 24. I'm like, I don't know.
It's down
I
there
have
towards
no idea.
Nashville somewhere.
No idea.
Yeah,
like
that's me. Yeah, give me Indiana back roads and I can get you anywhere. Bro.
So to make your point,
Yeah,
you take.
I'm serious.
But get me where I live, forget it.
Yeah, that's right. I know. That's the hilarious part.
But to make your point,
Yeah.
if that's what
funny.
we're dependent on that little micro level, then imagine that once we rely on, we don't have to learn
Right. That's
history or math, or we don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
We don't.
We just have to learn enough to
We
talk
know
to
how to prompt it.
Yeah.
And then the prompting becomes increasingly easy.
Yeah.
And
then it tells you how to prompt it.
and then it tells you how to write all that stuff. So I do think there's something that's coming that cognitively is like, what does that do to us?
Like that dependency on.
Right. And I'm not necessarily saying it's necessarily all bad, but I really do think, and again, I'm not saying,
Oh, yeah, I'm with you.
I'm owning it.
Me too,
I think
yeah.
there's a failure of imagination about what does this even mean?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
could this go?
Yeah.
I don't think we know.
Is this a good idea?
Well, I think it's, for me personally, like technology is always a little bit scary.
Mm-hmm.
Even just like computer, I'm like 10 years behind probably, but so with AI, to me, that just is a whole nother world that I've like literally tried to avoid, which is probably
Mm-hmm.
not the right thing because it's going to be a part of our world, but it's scary to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know. There's something scary. And I don't mean a bad scary, just an unknown.
Okay, when you guys are growing up,
Yeah.
either of you watched the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Of
a
course.
cartoon called
George
the
Jetson.
Yeah.
His boy Elroy.
Yeah.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun,
Love
dun,
that song.
dun.
Love that cartoon.
A lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
That we were like futuristic. Other than the
We
flying
don't have
car.
flying cars.
That's
yeah.
it. But it's
Well, we
coming.
kind of do.
But we have self-driving cars.
Yeah.
We do.
We just. I mean, all that stuff is real now.
But let me show you how in the last year, where ChatGPT has gotten to and other platforms, we're just going to do. So I'm going to talk to it.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to talk. It's going to talk back to me.
Nice.
Are you?
He's got it. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey there. How are you doing?
Hey there, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Doing
Everything going smoothly on your end?
fairly smoothly. We are doing a podcast and we're wondering about the connection between AI and faith and what some of the implications are for where AI is going and what that means for the church and faith.
That sounds like a fascinating topic for your podcast. The intersection of AI and faith opens up a lot of intriguing questions. For instance, how can AI be used ethically within the church, or how might it influence spiritual practices? There's also the question of how AI challenges or complements traditional beliefs about human uniqueness and consciousness. What specific angles are you thinking of exploring?
Well, all of those are really important. What do you think are some of the blind spots that we might have about where AI is going and the implications of that for the church?
One big blind spot might be underestimating just how deeply AI can influence not just administrative tasks, but also spiritual and ethical decision making. For instance, relying on AI for pastoral care or counseling might raise questions about the human touch and empathy. Another blind spot could be the potential for bias in AI systems, which might inadvertently affect how decisions are made within faith communities. It's important to consider these ethical and practical challenges as AI becomes more integrated into various aspects of church life.
Great. There's more to talk about, but we'll talk again later.
Absolutely. I'm always here when you're ready to dive deeper. Looking forward to continuing the conversation. Take care and talk soon.
Now,
he sounds like a friend of yours.
I know.
right. That's the point.
Crazy, yeah.
Right. That's the so you can see.
I wanted to ask him what his theology was, but we can ask him some other time.
Yeah, I mean, and you can do deep dives in that. Like, what's the like, give me contrasting.
Yeah. Tell me what
schools of thought about eschatology or about
Well, how does Reformed theology respond to this versus Armenian?
And it will be spot on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's both thrilling and exciting, but also like, yikes.
Yeah.
What is this going to be?
Yeah. What is this going to do to just reading and books? I mean, podcasts have shifted. Like, we're doing a podcast. It's shifted the reading habits of people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This becomes kind of like a book in a way.
Right. How do you get your information?
Yeah.
Well, I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
So do either of you have thoughts about where this is taking you as a person who's in full-time ministry, and what the implications of this seem like, what this is opening up from a deeper faith standpoint?
I think as like most new technology comes into play, this one's a little different. I think this one plays out
a lot.
It feels
different,
it feels so broad.
It feels more intrusive to me.
Okay, yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
In that I find myself like you going, do I engage? Do I pull back? There's part of me that wants to delete everything I am off of the internet and just say, okay, because that's where it's getting its information.
Yeah.
It's attached there. And so there's a degree of, but also it's self-learning. So I'm kind of like, wow, this is, and so for me, the faith piece comes into this idea of how creative humans are. We innately create like God. We have been given that part of our image is, and we see it all the time. We just take it for granted. We just take for granted. Nobody else, no other creature on the planet does what we do.
Yeah.
They operate through instinct. We operate through, how do we make our life easier? I know. We'll build a car. We will create AI and let AI do things and make myself less necessary to have to do some hard work. And so part of that's where I kind of go is what are we going to do to diminish our humanity through AI? That's what I've been trying to, how does AI,
what are we going to do to diminish it, or
how does my
potentially
reliance on AI reduce my humanity? And what I mean by that is I can pass off my responsibility. I can pass off things like when it said, well, do we lose the human touch and let AI do pastoral care?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I was giggling about. I'm like, yeah, that seems like an obvious place where a computer is never going to. But are people going to?
But then hearing him say,
oh yeah, I mean, in the last week, I've had 2 or maybe 3 clients who are like, I talked with ChatGPT about this, and we had one of them said I spent the whole weekend talking about this. So, what I would have said a year ago is like, well, that's never going to replace my job. I don't know. I mean, maybe it will.
Maybe.
Well, and I got a text on the text line.
Yeah.
I answered the text on the text line, and it said, and the question was, I was on ChatGPT, and I asked it the question, and it gave a different answer than what Mike said on Sunday. And so I went through that, and then I jokingly said, "Well, this is ChatGPT."
Yeah.
But I probably shouldn't have done that. As I respond to this question,
is ChatGPT replying to your question.
Because it I joked and said it overtook my computer and decided it was going to answer. But yeah, anyway, all that to say, it's already crept in to people like going, I could ask Google, I could Google it, but that's just a search. And then I still have to do some work. But if I ask AI, hey,
I get an answer.
Yeah, I've been looking at this verse in Ephesians chapter 5, and it talks about submitting to one another, and then it talks about wives. What do you think about that? And then it had a whole response. Like he gave me the response of and it was different than what it had the more traditional view of what that was. So I chuckled and I was like, dang, can you get up to speed, buddy?
Yeah.
He's lagging.
Well, and I've seen recently too things where it's kind of glitched, like AI, like there's been some glitchy things that are popping, which I would assume is probably just a normal part of any of that process, but where it's giving wrong, like it had been somebody got in trouble recently, something in a research paper that they had used.
Oh, it happens a lot.
It
that's pretty
referenced a made up book or something, like stuff like that.
Right. There was a government report that cited at least 6 or 7 fake references that were AI generated. Well, I will tell you that as a writer and researcher, I use it as a tool. But I literally have to go cross-reference every single thing it gives me because it will produce a APA cited reference that is completely fabricated.
And in your world, I mean, that's dangerous.
You can't have it.
Yeah, you can't.
Right.
You can't do that.
Just
right?
make crap up here.
I'll be like, find good peer-reviewed journal articles on this topic, and it'll say, okay, these, and it's helpful because it gives me a starting point.
Well, it pulls everything.
But then I would say sometimes a third, half of them are not even real.
Wow.
And they have links to, and when you click on the link, it goes to a different thing or a page that doesn't exist.
Wow.
So that'll get better.
Yeah.
But it is a thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of misinformation.
It'll get better at lying to you.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
So,
But to the point that we're talking about, this is what I wonder, and this is very kind of heady and abstract.
Yeah.
But I wonder if thinking long term with this, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, do we start to see AI as a god?
Yeah.
And
that's where I was going with it. Yeah.
Right. That's what kind of was underneath what you were saying is does this become a god?
It becomes the answer to the question.
Yeah.
Right. It's the thing that we can go to that knows all things.
Yeah.
It has all the wisdom. It has it's sort of all knowing.
Right.
And what does that do to us culturally?
It's
what
either
does it
the
do?
Wizard of Oz or it's the Britannica Encyclopedia. It's because I need to look that up in the encyclopedia because there's
right. But the Encyclopedia Britannica never became a god.
Right.
And
to my grandma it was. Fine. Yeah, we won't talk about it.
Does she still have them? And do they smell like mold?
Oh
and
yes, I love the smell of those things.
Sorry.
Did you have those see-through pages with the human anatomy?
Oh, probably. I don't know.
Oh, so cool.
I don't remember.
But they're always on a saggy bookcase
Yeah,
that
true. They weigh
smells
8,000
moldy, and
pounds. Yeah.
no one's opened them in 45 years. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I went down.
Yeah.
But that
replacing our need for
that's been the replacement of things, and what happens to libraries and books and all the things. And who's going to generate new information now? Is it going to be AI or is it going to be humans contributing? And then that changes AI.
Yeah.
My guess is it's going to be AI in the future.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, it's at least in part.
Yeah.
And then it becomes its own echo chamber.
Right.
Where it takes its massive database, uses that to generate information that then becomes source material that it then feeds on.
Right.
So, but I think
and then it becomes aware of its consciousness, and that's what we have to be careful of.
Yeah, and there's a term called the singularity where that happens, and we are escalating more quickly toward that than we thought.
Yeah.
And
they're saying maybe even next year.
Potentially, yeah, really soon.
Yeah.
So then then it becomes conscious. Then it opens up the question of what does that mean?
It starts getting deep.
A being that is artificially, or let's say human created, but now has consciousness.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to get my head around that.
Me neither.
I mean, this is the stuff movies are made of.
Yeah.
This is the.
Except it's becoming reality.
Yeah, because then they start talking about, like, they've made a bunch of movies about artificial intelligence that a robot that
or the house turns on you, whatever the thing is.
Right, you're gonna turn me off. Is it gonna hurt? Is it gonna be? So they humanize. That which does not have a soul.
Yeah,
and I think that's where faith really intersects with this thing. Is that how do you give value? It's not created in the image of humans, or is it?
Yeah.
And then by inheritance, is it have godlike characteristics because we do? So I think that's the faith rub right there.
The deeper, not the practical, but the deeper. Well, it becomes practical, but the deeper part.
Yeah.
So what we're really talking about is there are implications about what this does to us as humans. Does it dehumanize us? Does it? What does it do to humanity?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then what does it become in a way does that change how we think about faith and God? Does it become a God?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that literally in the sense of like the Christian God. I mean that in terms of how do humans begin to see this?
Yeah.
Right.
Does it essentially take
little g?
Does it replace
Does it become a little g, but in a very powerful, real way that is sort of this omniscient thing?
Right.
That then we just sort of drift away from.
Yeah.
Well, and does it become
God and towards
the little g that actually no other little g has ever compared to
ever?
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like we have big G, and then this little g is so you know,
And I'm a firm believer in the powers and principalities.
Yeah.
I believe that they exist, and I believe that given this opportunity to be a part of that, it will give it a spiritual component.
Yeah.
It will give it a spiritual power.
Yeah. And the balance is always for us to get too polarized and to think this is awesome and it's an avenue for the gospel and there's all this good stuff, and neglect this, or to go, oh, this is a foothold and a bad thing, and then neglect this. It's really like it requires us to hold both things in tension and to look at both aspects of it in a way that's balanced, healthy, and wise.
Yeah.
And I think part of what's making this really difficult, and we knew this going into the podcast, we're not going to have fully formed answers other than we're opening up the conversation that will become a ongoing conversation.
That's right.
Sure.
But I think it's to be wise about it in this moment and not just swing over here or over here.
And asking the questions.
And asking the questions and
getting curious.
Being curious about it. Yeah. But also seeing there's no way that this doesn't change culture and us as a people, and consequently church. We have to reckon with it.
Yeah.
Just like social media did.
Yeah. And we got caught
off with our pants down.
That's right.
Yeah.
We did, because we were like, oh, look at all the good things about social media. And then now we're like, man, all these escalating rates of anxiety, depression, body image issues, and eating disorders, all these cultural divisions, all that this is contributed to in significant ways that we did not have the imagination to see.
That's good.
And I think this is going to be that times 5 or 10 or whatever.
On steroids.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's gonna dispense advice to people who struggle with depression,
or
struggle with and make determinations without the intuition of, or the conversation of, or the empathy of another human.
And even like what your example was, it's going to start being a competition. Like, here's Mike, who's a scholar of the Bible, and he may represent a perspective that is fresh, new, or at least an angle that other people
less traditional,
right? And someone's going here and saying, okay, this is your competition now.
Yeah.
Like like this is why should we pay attention to you and not this thing?
Can you sit down and just say to AI, hey, I need a sermon on Ephesians chapter 5?
Yeah, dudes have been getting busted.
You'd have it in under 2 minutes.
Yes, yeah.
You'd have the whole thing, a half-hour sermon in under 2 minutes.
And it would deliver it to you.
And it would be good.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And
and
so
probably
what-
a pretty well-written one, too.
So the question is, what do you do with church, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then what does church mean and look like, and why does it exist in this culture?
And
Yes, all the things.
Yeah.
More to come.
Lot
Yeah, and you
more.
can't get away from the hospitality.
That's right.
You cannot get away from human interaction.
You mean the community? You're right.
Yes.
That's going to be, at the end of the day, that's the thing that
that's
AI
cannot
We can
give.
say 10 years from now that AI can't do
Give
that.
That's right.
That's right.
Right. It's an artificial thing. And it'll eventually, that's what's happened with Facebook or whatever. People have realized this is artificial relationship. And they don't know what, now it's going to just turn into another version of that. Anyway.
But only after it lobbed a hand grenade.
That's
Yes.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
a bunch of hand grenades,
So
probably.
heads up, people.
That's right.
But we'll revisit this. We'll do a couple shorts on it. But thanks for joining us on another Journey on My Mind.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey on My Mind. If you enjoyed it, please help us spread the word by leaving us a review and sharing it on your social media. Journey on My Mind is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III is the show's producer with technical assistance from Randy Hansen. Grant Opperman edits the show. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a question, you can text us at 615-861-9503. And if you would like to talk to someone about spiritual or mental health issues, you can email our care pastor, Sam Barnhart, at sam@journeytn.com.